Now with the background, it looks a little Bush League. We've got like this really cheesy looking ball going across this really nice kind of depth of field photograph. So what could we do to make this a little bit more realistic? There's obviously a light source, so we could put a shadow on that. And motion, you know, this is staying in 72 dpi all the time. It's not really showing any sort of speed. So when we think about speed, we think about blurriness, right? So we're gonna add some motion blurs to that. Let me just stop this from playing over and over and over again. I'm gonna re-hide the background, and I'm gonna change the background of my composition from black to white so that you can actually see a shadow. So you can do that by going up to composition, and then under composition settings, it's that dialog box again that we saw when we first started the project, and just double clicking on the background color, and I'm just going to change it to white. You just click on the color swatch, and then this dialog box shows up. Oop. So there, that's a little bit better. Does anybody want to take a stab at how I'm going to do this? No? Okay. I'm going to do this. Pardon?
Shadow?
Yeah, create the shadow.
You're going to duplicate the ball and make it super small and turn it back?
Yep. That's what I'm going to do. All right. I have to turn off a couple things, right? Because right now we're animating a ball, and the shadow isn't going to be animated the exact same way. So we're going to make a couple changes. First of all, I'm just going to make sure I've got the ball layer clicked on or selected. I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to paste it. So I've got two cropped ball layers. I have to be very careful with how I say that. I'm going to lock the top one. That's my ball. I hear people laughing, and it's okay. I'm gonna remember my stacking order, right? Like the shadow is underneath or behind the ball. So I don't want to change the top ball layer. I want to change the bottom one because that's my shadow. First of all, let's do a motion blur. Sorry, on the ball itself. We'll do the shadow after. I'm going to unlock that top one. Just make sure it's clicked on. After Effects actually has this really cool tool already integrated right into it, so you don't have to like apply your own filter to it. This little button right here, the motion blur, simulates shutter duration. Okay, just make sure you click on that little so that it's that ball that looks like there's two following it or trailers and behind it. I'm sure you guys are all familiar with trailers. That was a joke. All right, tough crowd. You can see though if you scrub your current time indicator, nothing really happens. Just turning that on does nothing. The problem with this is it takes up a lot of memory to try and run something like this. Thankfully, this file is small enough where we'll just turn it on and we'll leave it on. There's this activate button right here at the top of your layers panel. You want to enable that, and then any layer that's got the motion blur turned on will actually blur that layer. So just click that. You see what happens. I'll turn that back off. Watch the ball. It goes from being really nice. I'll zoom in because... son of a gun. So when you turn it on, it just there's a little bit of a blur there. It's a little bit more realistic than when I turn it off. So let me try that. So there, that's a little bit more realistic. There's a little bit of action going on there. Okay, is anybody good to keep going? Okay. I'm going to lock that now. I don't want to mess with that layer. I like it the way it is. It's kind of done at this point for the purpose of quick lessons. And I want to just concentrate on this second layer. First of all, I think it's probably a good naming convention not to keep it named as the same thing as the layer above it. So I'm going to rename this layer. I'm just going to right-click on it, and go to rename in that little pop-up window. And I'll just call it shadow. So the first thing I need to do is this shadow isn't going to be following the ball along these arcs. I need to remove the arcs because the shadow is just going to go along the ground, which is flat. So I just need a flat line there. I'm going to just make sure I have my convert vortex tool selected. And I'm just going to click on each one of these anchor points. Remember, just like in Illustrator, if you have your convert anchor point tool, you go between curved anchor points and corner anchor points. That's what I'm doing. I'm just turning them back to corner anchor points so that I'm basically removing all these Bezier curves. And that one, actually, I need to move down to a straight. Whoop. The last one, you're going to want to move it down so that it's perfectly flat, or somewhat flat. All right, so that's a problem. Now I've got this happening, right? It's okay. We're on our way. Shadows aren't the colors of a ball. Shadows are black, gray, whatever you want. I'm going to use a preset to actually change the color of this. I'm not going to draw a gray shape. I'm just going to change the color of this. Over here, mine's kind of tucked away. Over on the right-hand side, there's an Effects and Presets panel. If you want to just click on that to open it up. I'm going to give mine a little bit more real estate so you can see what I'm doing. These are all these pre-made effects and presets that you can add to your artwork. There's a lot of them, and I'm gonna do a search for the names of them because I know what they are. The first one I'm going to do is hue and saturation. Okay, so I'm just going to search for hue, and there it is. Color, under the color correction options, there's a hue and saturation. Okay, so if I double click on it, over on the left-hand side, now I've got a new panel, and it's kind of tucked my project panel away. An effect control button. And this is giving me all the options that I have for the hue and saturation preset. All I'm going to do is I'm going to crank this master lightness down to -100. You guys are familiar with the theories of color. I'm just going to take all the lightness out of it, so I'm just with a black circle. And that's it for that. I want to do one more, right? I want to do what's called a fast blur. And what does fast blur mean? Fast blur is just like a Gaussian blur, only it renders faster, hence the name fast blur, okay? Which is good because if you're dealing with a lot of video and you've got a lot of presets or effects happening, making sure that it works quickly is pretty crucial. So I'm just going to click on my effects and presets and do a search for fast. And there's my fast blur option that shows up right there under the blur and sharpen options. You can see that. I'm just going to double click on it to add that to that layer. And if I navigate over to the left side, again, my effect and controls panel, you might not see it. It's down at the bottom. It's really just added that effect onto or underneath another effect that's currently happening on that layer. I'm just going to close the hue and saturation one by clicking on the little caret up at the top. Can you guys see that? I'm just going to click on that little guy to hide it. So there's my fast blur. And nothing special about these options. I'm just going to use my scrubby slider and turn that up to where I think it's good. I got like 125-ish. That's looking a little bit more like a shadow. Okay, but like any shadow, nothing that's in a shadow is pure black, right? So we need to be able to see through this element to that asphalt background that we've got that the ball is bouncing on. So I'm just going to open up by clicking on the little caret down here. I'm going to open up the options for the shadow layer. Yep.
How do you move my shadow layer is actually in front of the ball right now?
So you can just rearrange the order of the layers just like you would in.
I'm trying to drag it, but it doesn't do anything.
Is it locked? Just make sure you unlock it first.
No, it's unlocked, but it's right down. I just sort of left it.
You should be able to just click on it, Kaylin, and then just see how you get that black line, and then move it on top or below.
I'm not doing the thing. It's saying the sort of like square thing that you.
Do you have your?
There we go.
Okay, you got it. Okay, back to the shadow layer. I want to change the opacity of this because, again, anything that's in shadow isn't pure black. I'm going to click on the opacity feature. I don't need to be on any particular frame here. I'm just going to affect the entire timeline. Okay, I'm just going to click on that and just turn the opacity down. You can see that that's going away. Maybe, I don't know, 50%. Play around with it. You might want to change it when you preview it with the background showing. Okay, so I'm just going to see how this looks by moving my playhead around. Now, the squish is still there. That scale transformation that we're doing is still there, which is okay because the shape of the ball is changing, which means the shape of the shadow is going to change with it. So I'm not too worried about that. However, when it gets to that point, right at that impact, it's almost like the shadow is completely behind the ball, and when it's at its highest point, a shadow is being cast on the ground. I want to change that. I'm just going to bump the shadow, the entire layer, down a little bit, and I don't want to do that keyframe by keyframe. If you click on the shadow layer, okay, and then just click on the position attribute. Don't click anything else. Just now with your arrow keys, oh, son of a gun, what's going on here? Should be able to just move everything down. Yeah, you should be able to just move everything down. See how all the anchor points are changing? Okay, so it's just a click on the layer, click on the attribute, and then just use your arrow keys to move those up and down. I'm just going to move them down a little bit to get this effect. So now if I scrub my time indicator, the shadow is below the ball, right? Because the light source is coming from the top. That looks a little bit better. There was one more thing I wanted to do too. Right. So when a shadow is cast on the ground and we're looking at it from this angle, it's almost like we're looking at the ball from a bird's eye view, and I've got this perfectly round shadow. It's not going to look like that, right? Like if we're looking at it from the angle that the camera is from, there's a very long depth of field there. So I need to squish this entire layer to be not so tall. Again, we're going to change the whole layer at once. I don't want to do it keyframe by keyframe, especially on the scale option because I've got a lot of keyframes that would take me a long time. I'm just going to click on the shadow layer, click on the scale, the word scale on that attribute, and then squish it. No, you know what? I'm going to do this with my scrubby slider here. That way I know I'm only affecting the one. I only want to change this vertically. So I'm going to scrub this down to, I don't know, like 40%. Or 40. So that presents another problem. Anybody have any issues with that? Pretty straightforward. Let me scrub this again. And now, yeah, that's a problem. Hey, it didn't do my whole layer. What's going on? Teacher fail. All right, I'll figure that out in a second. Anyways, the next thing I wanted to talk about was this rotation is still happening with the shadow, right? So I just want to remove that rotation off of the shadow. Just click on the rotation layer or attribute and just click delete. And you'll see that because all of these anchor points are selected or keyframes are selected, it's just going to get rid of them all. Except I screwed up this stupid shadow. Is anybody having any luck with that? Scaling the whole layer down? Or is it adding a keyframe for you?
I had to get rid of, like, it had the old, like, the scale layer from the ball.
Yeah.
So I had to get rid of that first, then I can do the whole thing.
You know what? Here's another way to do it. I'm just going to click on that, delete all those keyframes, and then as long as I'm on frame 1 of my playhead, I'm just going to change the scale down. Keep my fingers crossed. What did I do now? Oh. Oh my god. Anybody see where I screwed this up so bad?
I do. I think when you unclicked it, they all deleted. All of them. Yeah.
Whoops. Oh my goodness. Sometimes you run into stuff where you're like, what the hell just happened? Okay, well, I'm not going to fart around with that too much, but you guys get the idea, right? You guys get the idea? I totally lost it there. I'm shutting us down.